Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Agency Exposed. Good morning, guys. How are you?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Hey,
It's early for us.
it's Friday.
We went
It's
back to
Friday.
the 7 a.m. time.
We did.
We are
did,
in person live.
which is if you're on linear time, but most of you are not. But welcome. Welcome to another episode. We've got several topics to talk about today, so I'm looking forward to it.
Topics without answers.
Topics without answers, my favorite type of
Things we're
topics.
chewing on.
So what's going on with you guys? First of all, how are you feeling? I feel like here in Tennessee, everybody is out and almost back to normal. It's a little strange seeing this. This is what's weird to me is there was a time when we were all together and everyone was like, we're in this together. Everyone's at home, everyone's Zooming. And now it's like some people are at the beach partying. Some people are still sequestered in their homes. Some people are kind of half in and half out. It's a little weird right now.
You know, it's funny because I went out yesterday and I got in my car and I'm like, I have no hand sanitizer in my car nor a mask. And though I wasn't going any place where I was going to really be interacting with people, I felt like I didn't have fear for one of the first times, which was actually felt good, just not to have the anxiety. Again, I wasn't going in some place where I was going to be, hugging people and hanging out with people. But the reality is that I feel like when this first happened, there was a sense of anxiety, even its undertones that I didn't even know I had. And so there's something freeing about it that I felt like, and as you get used to going back to the norm, to normal, it's amazing. I don't want to forget about how I felt. Like I don't want to take for granted this kind of feeling of freedom and connection and being with people and hanging out and being able just to get out.
Like actually touching people, like
Well,
giving an elbow bump. even.
Yeah, I didn't really. Maybe I did an elbow bump or a fist bump
Yeah.
or something. I still in the back of my mind of the distancing, but I
Sure.
just I like not feeling anxiety about something. And
One less thing.
Yeah, I just we forget so quickly as humans, and I just don't want to forget. Like, there's been good and bad during this quarantine time. There's been great times with my family, a lot, being able to spend a lot more time and doing things, playing a lot of board games and watching cool movies together with my daughter, and all those things that I'll always remember. But I don't want to take for granted our freedom that we have and the ability just to be human,
Yeah.
and what that
great.
really means. So.
That's a great point.
I love that, Brad.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I wrote that before I came in today.
It's a new song you're working on.
Yes.
I'm just happy it's sunny outside. It's rained for the last 20 days.
Yes.
Yes, for sure. For sure. So what's going on in the business world? This is what this podcast is about. Ken, you were mentioning a new kind of report / data that's come out from Hubspot specifically. What's going on
Yeah,
there?
well, one of the topics we were talking before we started recording here, one of the things I would like to know is what agency services are selling these days. I can share some of ours, and what kind of leads are we getting? What sort of things are closing? How has that landscape changed? And how are and people, and if you're surviving and thriving in that, which hopefully you are, what does that look like? And so I'm always sort of looking at this stuff, but HubSpot came out with some interesting data because it looked like they aggregated everything from all their different clients. They've I think hundreds of thousands, but I could be wrong with that. But they have a lot, right? And they separated by industry.
A lot of clients.
A lot of clients. That's good. A lot of customers, and they separated it by industry, and they sort of charted I think it was deals created and deals closed, and it went from January. So January, sort of like January, February, that was sort of the baseline, and they've charted it all through March, April, and now into May. And what's interesting, it went. I think it's just telling, right? So number of deals and number of deals created and number of deals closed both kind of went the same way, but it got as low as 40% lower below the baseline where it was in February, back in March, and it's still, according to their data, down at least 15% from where it was before. It's just sort of gradually coming back up, and I think that that's telling. I think that's where we're feeling. We felt that, I think, and it's definitely changed in the last couple of weeks. We talked about that a little
You're
bit
feeling
last
it's
week.
starting to inch back up.
We're feeling that hesitation to start to loosen up, which I think is just the case in every company.
Do you think that has to do the change going back up? Do you think it had to do with the stimulus package at all, or do you think like the mindset is? Because I pop through headlines a lot, and I read headlines to kind of get an overall narrative of the economy, even daily. And one of the things is like, Americans are saving more and they're not spending, and Americans are see the end of the tunnel for the stimulus, and they don't know what they're going to do. They see the money running out in a few months, and then they don't know what to do next because there's no other money coming in for them that they can foresee. Again, from a consumer side, maybe not from a business side.
Well, I think the business side is just as interesting because I think the impact could potentially be bigger, i.e., is this rise that we're seeing, like you mentioned in the Hubspot, of business coming back, going to happen quick enough to coincide with the end of the payroll protection plan, which was what, 90 days? So there's like what?
Yeah, 6.
So there's 45 days. I don't know how much.
Yeah,
There's
8 weeks.
There's 8 weeks left.
Yeah.
8
Well,
weeks total.
there was 8 weeks from whenever you got it.
Yeah, I heard that they changed yesterday. Though they actually amended it to extend it to and to make some changes that were favorable for companies that got it.
Meaning you could extend.
Yeah, they're going to extend. I don't know the details of it. I got to read up on it still, but they're extending the ability to use your PPP over a longer period than 8 weeks.
Got it.
So
if
It's not necessarily more money though. So
no more money.
It doesn't really change. I think some things that people struggle with.
But there was a limit on how you could use that money, right?
Yeah, there still is. It's just
So
use
maybe
it for a longer time.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
they're
if
saying
you-
you can use it longer.
Yeah,
or
before you had 8 weeks to, and if you, let's say you hired somebody back on week 6, you could only take advantage of 2 weeks of their
Right.
income. Where now they're allowing you, I think, that to expand, that you can take the full 8 weeks of an income,
depending on no matter when you hire them.
Yeah, up until the end of December or something. I think you can still apply for the forgiveness. I believe that's the beats that I heard, but I don't know.
And by the time this comes out, it'll probably have changed as well. But
Yeah,
it looks
they-
like it's just changing.
I felt like the feds, like they launched a plane and then they're building it on the way up, and they're kind of deciding the rules.
So the question is, from the time that starts to end, the payroll protection, to the point of where business comes back up, and every business is going to be different, obviously. To me, that's going to be kind of that area where it determines, like, are things going to get better?
You look at the narratives in the stock market right now. Some people are like, oh, buy low. It's a good time when these companies are all beat down. But the reality is, you look at a lot of guidance, and they're like, we don't know what's going to happen in July, because all this money is going to run out in July. All the extra stimulus for even unemployment. So people right now are getting a little bit more bonus in their unemployment than they will, and so all that's going to run out this summer. And I don't know if there's going to be any backup. And if there's not, then that's when we're really going to go into that recession they've been talking about hard. I don't think our mindset right now, I believe the people I've talked to and the business owners I've talked to, though a lot of them are entrepreneurial focused, which is a different mindset going into the game anyways, the attitude is as if nothing's happened to them yet. Like they're like very optimistic and proactive, and they're not spending a lot of money. They're being very conservative, but their attitude is of what it was 6 months ago. But I do believe that if it starts to get a little harder this summer, some of those attitudes will start to diminish, and that might be tougher for us. Like I think we could see this whole thing. If things go well, we could see that things pick up by the end of the summer, and we're back to kind of where the mindset of where we were. Again, unemployment will still be hit hard, and so those jobs won't come back for a while. Or we could go the opposite and start to even tailspin a little harder. I don't know.
Yeah, we were talking about this yesterday over coffee, and not to totally change the subject, but I think it's on the same path of there's going to be certain industries that are hit harder, and there's going to be, how it affects your business as agency owners, agency employees, whoever's listening to this. And one of those is, this whole idea of what's going to happen to real estate And do agencies need to continue having offices? All of that's a whole philosophical discussion that we could talk some about today. But I think it's interesting to see, was it Twitter that said they're going to 100% work at home from now? There's a lot of people who are reexamining that, and that means a lot of real estate that's going to be available.
Oh man, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, like what's going to happen to all those buildings and offices and things like that, where people are like, I'm going to cut my overhead because of the economy.
Yeah.
And hey, we work great. We don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
Is that even going to be a thing?
I mean, I think re-examining the things that you do just because you do them, over time is every once in a while is really healthy. And I think the way we work is definitely one of those things, right?
If you look at modern commercial real estate building, a lot of the thought even a year ago was let's create more open spaces where people can kind of come and go and use the space. They're even downsizing the amount of parking spaces in buildings, new buildings, just because they understand that people in the future may not be driving as much, and they may not need as much of their staff there full time. I think that just this during this quarantine, I think it's just we just got there faster, and I think people are getting used to it now that people are used to working from home. Why go back?
Yeah.
So, I mean, we even talked about that. Like, do we even need our office? And I'm like, yeah, we need it 25% of the time, maybe. But do we have to have the other 75%? Could we not have and, have more open spaces that you could kind of come and go, and we can have meetings when we need to in the office, but then people have a lot more flexibility. And back in the first of the year, we actually went to where you could work from home 3 days a month. So that's literally 3 weeks. You could work in the office for 4 days and then spend 1 day at home or wherever you want, coffee shop or some
Maybe
other
it might be
place.
flipped now.
Yeah, and so maybe we need to go 3
You have to come in 1 day a week at least.
1 day a week you got to show your face. The other days we need to see you on video.
I mean, as far as office space is concerned, I was looking at it and I'm thinking like, okay, for us, and I would imagine most other agencies, the reason you need an office is for team camaraderie, is for client meetings, which arguably most clients probably will not want to meet in person for a long time, I would think. And lastly, there might be projects that you need to physically work together. For instance, we do a lot of video. And so for us, it would be like our video shoots and some of our media and that kind of stuff, production. But other than that, I'm like, you really don't need an office. And it used to be, we were talking about this yesterday. And I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but like I think this situation, one of the benefits is it's removed the shame for doing things differently. Or for trying things. And one of those things is office space. Like, let's be honest, a lot of agencies and most businesses in any industry, probably one of the reasons they have office space is because if you didn't have office space, are you a legitimate business?
Right. It's really for the customer or prospective customer, not for the functionality of the business necessarily.
And rethinking that, I mean, there's probably other things we do in that category. And that's arguably wasted capital and resources, So rethinking that, I think, is a healthy thing.
Also the logic behind that. I was sitting here thinking, yeah, I've done that. And yes, it is important. It's why a realtor drives a nice car, right?
Yes.
Like they always tell you, okay, new realtors, you got to have at least a car that's no older than 3 years old, because you don't want your client thinking that, you're not successful and you're not selling houses. Right. And I get that, but what you're saying is I'm going to gear my life and my money and my resources toward that maybe one or two people who even really care. And are they really going to hire me because I have a fancy office or not?
And I would argue that I would think that mindset has shifted.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? Like I would even think it's kind of old school to think that I would pick a realtor based on their car, or an agency based on its office. It may even hurt you, right? It may even be, and we were talking about this, it may even be that those things make you look wasteful. And so I wonder if it's what I've seen is the shift. What that used to provide credibility, right?
So my 30-person conference room looks wasteful.
With the diamond studded chairs, they might be a little much.
Okay. Yeah.
No, but seriously, I think what it provides is credibility. And so the question is, and I know we're on an odd tangent, but like what are the things that provide credibility now? And I would argue that or what I've seen is that is more just real success, and the way you prove that. You used to not be able to prove that with visuals and numbers and all those kind of things. Now you kind of can. And so, hey, I mean, a lot of people have really beautiful websites and actually work in their mom's basement. So, and it's really hard to tell what it is, and neither one of those things actually means success, right? So credibility is maybe even harder to determine right now.
I kind of call this phase 2 of the leveling, meaning phase 1 was the internet, right? That like leveled the playing field. So it removed the control of, having very limited options to speak to the public and to sell and to things like that. So that leveled the playing field. Everyone could participate. Now I think this is phase 2 of the leveling, to say, now you're like, okay, phase 1 was you can be a successful e-commerce, you can speak, you can have a platform, you can build a YouTube channel, but still you had to be successful. Those who had the more money actually in that environment even rose to the top. If you had a fancy office, fancy cameras, obviously, all those things matter. But now there's a second where it's flattened, where it's not even about really who has the fanciest office or the fanciest stuff. It's more focused on the work, the message, and the result. And that's beautiful. That's beautiful on one level, because it does separate, and it's like, okay, it's not about two people, same proposal. One's bringing them into a really fancy office, wowing them with, the hardwood floors and the open space, and the other one may not have it. And the fancy office won. Well, like you said, now that's shifting. Now that's removed, and now it's just judged on performance and results.
Yeah, it's I grew up working in my early 20s in the ad business in Detroit, and that was when advertising and marketing was more magical, meaning it wasn't accessible for everyone to be able to do. You needed a certain level of resources and people and really contacts and very qualified people, and it was very kind of mystic in some ways of the way that
the tail end of the Mad Men era.
Yeah. And so when we have clients, especially corporate clients that would come into our offices, we really want them to go, wow, this is a really cool, magical place. It's like Disneyland, right? You want, when you go to Disneyland, you feel very magical. Especially that A Small World ride. Anyways.
And there's something great about that, right?
Yeah. And so you bring these people in, and the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, wow, this is really cool. I'd love to work here. Because they work in a stuffy office somewhere that's not creative and doesn't help to make them feel good. And so you wonder, was that part of the sell? Like, was that part of like, hey, yeah, hire us and you can come here anytime and hang out and eat, drink espressos and
ride a scooter around.
Yeah, ride a scooter around. We all play all day, right? That's all we do, and have fun. And though that's not always the case, it's is that valuable in today's world where this, like you said, the leveling now, where everyone, a 16-year-old is sometimes your best, social media director. Is that important anymore, or does that change? And I don't know. My lens is really skewed, because when you grow up in that era, it's hard for me to put my head into somebody else's body, myself into someone else's body, and go, what does this really look like? Like, we don't have, our offices are kind of cool, but they're not like over the top. We're not a big agency, so we don't look like a big agency. But we do have people who come in, the first things that come out of their mouth is cool offices. I hear that all the time. Cool offices. Does that good or bad? I don't know. And where's the level of that? Like, where's the opulence to the point where you're overspending on stuff to, is it to hire people? I mean, sometimes people do it because when they hire people, they want them to feel a good environment. Like, but that gets old after a while, right? The honeymoon's over and the environment doesn't matter anymore. It's just work. I don't know.
I do think environment matters. I know you didn't necessarily mean it that way, but there's sort of like the environment, and then there's like all the other stuff that's there simply to wow people or to give that credibility, and you can pull that back. Also, I would say, like, this is a weird, obviously in this little area, but like with your offices, would you not say that it's one of the ways that you show your uniqueness and creativity, and that can be done without being over the top or extravagant?
Yeah.
You can even do that at home. So like our office is a little 1920s house, and it's got all the original, like, you know, baseboards and those kind of things. It's, you know, we're in Nashville, Franklin. And it's cool, but it's not traditional at all in the way of like agency stuff. But people always comment on how cool it is, and it doesn't cost $1 million. Actually, it does.
Do you have a fireplace?
Not a month.
Do you have a fireplace? I can't remember.
We have a fireplace in every room.
Oh man,
they don't work though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We have a portable heater in the corner.
No, we have those little. You know, back then they didn't have heating like we do, so they had fireplaces.
Oh yeah.
But all that to say, rethinking all that is really important, and we're rethinking it, and we'll probably go back to less days in the office than remote. And again, I saw, you know, it's not necessarily from home, right? It's remote, as long as your work can be done really, really effectively and well, and focus. There's just such a tremendous value that we've seen out of the focus of people, you know, not being distracted all the time. And we sort of pendulumed as a business community into this like open workspace era. And I think we saw some benefits, but I think there's a lot of distraction that came with that, because it takes real discipline, a lot of you know, agreed systems of how people work in order to make that work. And so you see a lot of people moving away from that anyway. And so this balance actually does that.
Don't you think that's more about, I think an open workspace is really good for some people and it's really bad for others. Yeah. And it doesn't take into account the uniqueness of every individual. And I think with an open workspace, you're like, this works for everybody, and it's more creative. And it may like be novel for a while, but the reality is some people thrive in that environment. Some people, it's miserable. And you have to really know, right, your like the differences of personalities, because some people, they need to be sequestered, a closed door, need to be in silence. They can't be interrupted, or else they don't function at a high level.
Would you agree with this? It's not really the uniqueness of people, but it's the uniqueness of the task that they're doing. Because
I think it's probably a little bit of both, but
certain people, I would say, like, you know, no matter how much you love noise and distraction, if you're an accountant and you're working on someone's taxes, you probably need quiet, right? But no matter what your personality. And
if you love noise and distraction, you're probably not an accountant.
You're probably not an accountant. Right. So, but there's all that creative stuff that happens, you know, from collaboration. And
Absolutely.
There are conversations that happen that would never have happened if you're not sitting next to somebody. So how do you balance both those things? And now we have the opportunity to actually rethink that and figure out, okay, how do you get the best of those two worlds?
Well, you know, we have an open environment. We do have some isolation spaces, some like little phone booths and things people can, in conference rooms, you can go in and isolate yourself. But one thing that I notice is that almost all of us at some level wear headphones. And so we're not doing that just because we're music mavens and we love listening to podcasts and stuff. I think we do it because there is interruption going on from other people, and so it's a way to just to at least isolate yourself. Now, maybe not visually, you can see everyone around you pretty closely, but just to isolate yourself from, and basically telling everyone, I'm busy. Please don't interrupt me, kind of thing. But almost, you know, if I look around, almost everyone was wearing headphones, where if they had their own office, they probably wouldn't have headphones on. They'd just be working. They might have a little speaker or something. I don't know. I just don't feel like they'd be wearing headphones as much. So maybe that's a good telltale sign that, you know, people do need, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that's the way they do isolate themselves and get into their groove and get into their zone to be able to focus. But for me personally, I like the idea of the openness, but I definitely would rather have my own office, mainly because I just have a lot of private things that I wouldn't want somebody to see on my screen, like other employee information. If I'm doing something that's personalized to an employee, where I'm doing,
And you like a door with your name on it.
yeah, I like the little,
The desk.
the desk.
Do you think a day is coming
Well-
that where we employees, staffs, teams are going to be, how do you work how you want to work? As long as you're producing
Yeah.
and delivering, you do it however you want. Do you
It's
think
already happening, right?
right?
Yeah.
If you want to come in the office, great. If you want to work from home 100% of the time, great.
I think you see that happening. I do think there's a downside to it when it's not what's the right word? Like when there's no teaching or mentoring around it, because the freelance community does that a lot, and there's some really good things about it. But also, it's sort of like when you're back in the day when you used to go to college, when you're in high school and you transition to college, like it's sort of like, hey, it's up to you to be disciplined, to be responsible, to keep a schedule, to do all these things. And without being taught some of those things, I do think it can err too much on the side of irresponsibility. But I do think there's a day, and I think it's happening right now. And I just think there's a blending that, in my opinion, would make it even better than where it is.
I think great mentorship happens from observing, especially, if you're entering into a career. Like, I think so much of my mentorship wasn't all that intentional. It was just absorbed through observing other people. And I don't know that on Zoom calls I could get that from people. Like, I don't think I could. I think it's being in the same space, kind of shadowing people, being in physical place with them, seeing how they interact, not just on presentations, but actually how they interact with other employees, the little things they do.
That's a good point too.
The way they keep their desk, the way, all that stuff.
Certainly there are things that are easier to learn right now, right? Because there are great courses and there are people teaching them all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there are things that you can't maybe learn through those type of situations, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're going into sales and you need to sit in sales meetings or those kind of things. Now you can sit on Zoom calls and that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I bet there are a bunch of things that need that one-to-one sort of mentorship. I look at our team and I would say, like, if we were just fully remote from the beginning, and we have been more remote than most, like, so we do remote days, we over the holidays, like a lot of times several weeks at a time we'll be out of the office. And so we do that stuff often, but we've set our systems up, and those are systems for success, and we're a highly disciplined team, or that's our goal, is to be that. And so if someone just stepped into working from home, I believe it'd be a lot harder to teach that stuff. So I think what's interesting is, as we have this work remote or work anywhere culture, or maybe where we blend into, as you bring new people on, I think there's a new challenge. I don't think it's an insurmountable one. It's just different, right? Because now you're going to bring someone on, you have to acclimate them in a completely different way. It might even be harder.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday too, is that, if you are doing a lot of remote working, I think it's really healthy to get together as a team frequently, even if it's not work related. Maybe it's just team building and having fun and building friendships and rapport. Because I think that's the biggest thing that I'm feeling so depleted of right now is, I think some of our team members I haven't seen, like literally face to face in 2 months.
Yeah.
And so we need to get together and just break bread and sit around and see each other face to face. I think is really important. And I think that's one thing that I feel like I could easily get lost. People can get lost by virtually working, meaning if 2 or 3 people are working on a project, and one person for some reason it's easier for one person to isolate themselves further from a team and kind of just be being pulled into that team constantly, because there's other things going on at home, dynamics that are hard for people, right? They have families, they have young children, and they're kind of isolated in that if they do work remote. And it's harder for sometimes people to connect that way. And those people that are having a hard time connecting, they could just get lost.
Yeah.
And I'm a little afraid about that.
And
that's me included too.
Yeah,
I can
I
get
agree.
lost. I can get disconnected. It's just my
the
personality.
human connection is so important. I saw somebody recommend something that I thought was pretty radical, but it made a lot of sense. For those companies that are medium to larger size that do have huge overhead, this one person was suggesting, they have twice a year team retreats and picnics where they have these budgets. Twice a year, they pull their 100 people together or whatever. And his suggestion was, why don't we just get rid of all this millions of dollars of overhead, or however much it is, hundreds of thousands of dollars, go fully remote, and then take that money that we were spending on twice a year and the money we're saving, and every week we come together for some kind of really cool team, or 3 times a week, 3 times a month, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's intense human connection.
Yeah.
For full days of we all work together, we go someplace fun, we eat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner that day, whatever it may be. Which I thought that was an interesting perspective
In
too.
fact, that may be even healthier in the end, because sometimes you can be present at your office, you still feel disconnected.
Exactly.
You feel like you're just a number. My challenge is, and it's a personal challenge, is that I don't often feel the need to connect deeply with people. So there's not that deep need. I could just sit there and work all day long, 12 hours a day, and finally feel comfortable as long as I'm getting crap done. You know what I mean? And I don't feel the need of this connection with people. And it's just it's a deficit of my own that it struggles, because that's not the case of my team. And so what happens is I'm assuming this, so that it can feel like I'm just driving all day long and I don't really care about everyone else, even though I deeply do. I just don't feel the need to have to be together all the time. But I know it's necessary, and it's good for me too. It's not that I don't need it. It's just it doesn't come natural as a need, as a desire. But I always know it does good. And so that's a struggle that I have. It's like, I almost need to, and I think maybe in business, you have to find those people internally that kind of have that natural gift of getting people together and putting that stuff together well, that can kind of drive those things. And so, I don't know, that's a.
I mean, one thing even before this and through the whole pandemic situation where everyone's home, we had focused on creating situations where we were either together working, but in a fun place, or doing events, or sort of just kind of being human beings and being a family, because that's kind of what you are in any company, especially a smaller company. And we saw huge results from that. I mean, the connection and even the productivity rise because of the interaction with people. It was just a lot more efficient and stronger, and there was a true connection there. Was just really great, and we continued to do that. It was hard. We did a bunch of Zoom happy hours and like all kinds of stuff that we tried during this time, but that's something that we focused on, and we saw great results from, and we still do, and we still will. I mean, how much, honestly, it's maybe a few $100s to go. There's a wine bar, like a cafe, but wine bar over here by where we office. And so we just like go work there for half a day or a day, drink a couple glasses of wine. And
does the work get better?
The work, it seems to get better. But we just work from there, like a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't, not that much money. And it's a different environment, and it's interesting. There's a vineyard near where we are in Franklin, which is cool. I didn't realize not everyone has that, and it's a huge blessing.
There's a theme of wine going on.
There's
here,
a lot
Ken.
of wine drinking, yes.
The key to success.
Yes, it's yeah.
Doesn't Franklin
It's a
have
good
a
antioxidant.
wine like festival?
Yes.
Probably.
I think they do
probably
in the
Ken's about to
late
talk
summer,
about that
fall.
one too.
Yeah, that's a good one to go to. But I don't know. Those things are great. And so to the point of connection, I'll just say this: like, in some ways, I actually found that it was easier to connect with people through this. So we in our team do these one-on-ones. Every person has someone that they do a one-on-one with. and we do them once a week. And we continued to do this, and I would say connection was even easier a lot of times because you had a reason to ask how somebody's doing.
Yeah, back up a second. Explain what a one-on-one is.
So we stole it from another organization in town, and I'm sure it's not the first time that I don't think they invented it, but it's basically every person in your organization connects with their leader once. It could be once a week, once every 2 weeks. Right now we do either once a week or once every 2 weeks, depending on, we're sort of transitioning to every 2 weeks, honestly. But every person connects with their leader on a frequent basis. And it's just could be a half hour. And it's really not, I mean, you can talk, we try and, we allow anything. So, can talk about work, talk about issues, productivity, but it's really focused on how that person is doing. And
so it's more personal time versus like work time.
Yeah. It's how they doing at their position, their role, how's life. And the practical reason is honestly, like, yearly reviews are just, I mean, no one enjoys them. I don't think, and they're just too far apart.
Unless you're getting a raise.
Yes, at the end. Yeah. But like, so connecting, you kind of eliminate that to some degree, and you just connect more frequently. And then like problems don't fester, and you just have more opportunity to adjust, in small increments. And it's just been hugely valuable too.
Let's shift gears for a second. Kind of along the same lines. So we've been talking the last half hour about how this is affecting us as agency owners and things like this. I'm always looking for opportunities. I was talking to my wife about this the other day, and she was talking about on a personal home kind of like she was like, there's a good business opportunity here for someone to go in and help people rearrange and build spaces in their homes for working at home and spending time with your kids more. Like, people to realize their homes weren't really set up for it. And if things are more of that. And so along the same lines as agency owners, there's some huge opportunities with our clients now. Like, they're all having these same conversations so that we, software, tools, processes, helping them, we need to see the opportunities here because they're going to be rethinking how they're doing business. How do they monitor their employees? How do they report? How do they stay connected? How do they, promote events that are remote events that are now no longer in person? All of these opportunities, I think there's, as we talk about businesses and getting back on track, I think there's some great ways and things that are in our wheelhouse that if we just look at them from a little bit different perspective, we might find some nuggets of gold in here that we can offer services for our clients.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm always wondering if people do work from home, are they going to ask employees are going to ask for a stipend for some of their mortgage or rent because now they're paying the bill.
Well,
right?
They can do that on their taxes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
and so. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I want to get in the business of.
Brad's doing their math. I don't know.
I don't know if I want to get in the business.
The bill
of
hasn't changed,
helping
right?
companies, infrastructure, set them up. But I mean, you have to wonder, like, is the WeWorks of the world now gonna start to explode, and because of the shared space, or what that's gonna look like as far as the future of that? I don't know.
Well, I think the point that I would take away from that is, and we talked about this earlier, like what services are selling, and I still want you guys to answer that question. But one of the things that we've been doing, and one of the things that we've been coaching even our customers on, because it's every business can do this, is how do you repurpose your knowledge, right? And so looking at things differently, right? You're figuring out, you're solving problems that your customers and clients and potential clients also have. And you can't do it in a weird way, right? But in a natural way, you can actually, again, like most agencies are inherently good at technology and in the digital space. And so they're probably more positioned to, figure those things out than some other companies. And so you can naturally help with those skills, and that provides value.
Well, Brad, you're already doing this. We've talked about this. So for instance, if you have a client who you have done all the creative promotion, lead generation for these huge live events that they do all over the country, all over the world. Well, there's these businesses either say, well, we're going to die and not exist anymore because people aren't going to do that for another year. Yeah. Or you have an opportunity to say, let's put together and do these virtual events where we can get just as many people, just as much money coming in, just as much experience.
Yeah, we're really finding that with we had about 5 events for a client that were international, Rome and London and Paris, and we had to shut those down and stop those. We had people that are RSVP for them, and so what we did is we got to put those online, right? We got to get those as a virtual event so those folks can actually kind of give a similar experience through a virtual presentation, and we found out that we opened it up to everyone else, and we had 500 RSVPs and stuff. So now we opened it up, and it wasn't just those cities anymore that we were contacting those. And by the way, those folks that RSVP for the event, they have to go to the actual event. They have to park. There's a lot they have to do just to get to the event. And we found that the event was just as valuable. And now we opened it up, and it was probably, easily the production of the online event was probably 1/8 of the cost, if not less. And we were able to hit a lot more and really influence a lot more people. And I felt like, and I've been to these live events, and I felt like the event was just as powerful through a virtual experience. I'm like, wow, why were we not doing this before? And where was the value of a personalized event? And so I think things have shifted, and so now it gives us some, you find these things out. We're going to continue to do these no matter what.
And could you take what you've learned and apply that to other organizations that do live events?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's a multi-billion-dollar industry.
We have track record to show now. So things that we haven't done before for our agency, now we have proven results and the successful stories. And so we could easily do that for other companies, and we could say, hey, this is what we did, and this is how much it saved, and we have all the numbers, so now we have a new offering.
Yeah, that's a great example of that. That's a great example. Ken, how about you guys? Are you finding that could be some opportunities for either new or existing clients?
Oh yeah, I mean, we're in direct to consumer e-commerce. And so that industry has grown, I think, 10 years in 3 months. And so there are all these areas, particularly, I mean, the top ones are probably around the local contactless, pickup and interaction at stores, and how in-store and online kind of gets closer and closer together. That I think we're deep in, and I think every industry is like that. Every industry is going to have, my brother has an architectural firm in New York City, and it's maybe one of the most antiquated industries I've ever seen. And I would always tell him, look, there's such opportunity to be different there. There's just such a giant opportunity because it's just so antiquated. Everyone's doing things without, the same way they were doing things 100 years ago, it seems like.
Drawing
maybe not
tables.
100. Yeah, I mean, they've just sort of adopted, obviously, computer drawing in the last few years. But, for instance, so the building department, where you have to file and get everything, that was all in person. They would never go online. And it was this massive, inefficient machine. In this, they've been forced to get online and to figure out some way to do these applications and approvals and all those things online. Now, it's, from what I hear, I'm not an architect, it's pretty clunky and bad, but that's a huge benefit to everybody.
Sure.
And it's a new opportunity in that industry to change how you do business, because now the the organization, the governing body of it has shifted something completely, and so now you don't necessarily have to go about. I mean, I know they used to schedule their days around getting to the building department at a certain time to submit drawings and do all these kind of things. And he's probably listening, and I probably got it wrong, but I think it's there was a the way you did business was centered around something that's now shifted, and I think that's the point. And I think every industry that's happening, and every single entrepreneur and leader of an organization, I believe, needs to be just chewing on that problem constantly. I know I am. It's interesting, live event space. We're in Nashville, obviously, and like music, live events, live music is a huge part of this town and their economy, right? We export tons of music to the world, right? Through tours and all kinds of other things. And
we export fun.
We export fun. Yes.
That's what we sell.
That's right.
That's the product of Nashville.
We export bridal parties.
And we import those, apparently, according to the tourism board. But that's shifted, right? And who knows when that's going to come back the same way? It's probably not going to be the same way. So they have to adjust. And so I see people doing drive-in concerts now, which are interesting.
A drive-in movie.
Yeah, just like that
still exists.
Back to the 20s. So anyway, there are those opportunities you have to look for, and
it's amazing how you're saying that some of these antiquated companies, all of a sudden, they had to introduce technology to get their business, keep their business running, and it's funny because it reminds me of one of our clients. We've been trying for years to get them to pay through directly to our bank through ACH, and they kept on, no, we're just going to send checks in the mail, and it's like our only client that pays that way still. And finally, during this, then in the COVID-19, they finally said, yeah, we're going to start paying you ACH because we need 2 signatures on our checks, and they're in New York City, and they can't get 2 people together because of the lockdown, so they had to force them to do something different. But obviously it was beneficial for them. It wasn't, but we've been asking them for a couple of years now, and so finally I think we've made that transition. And it's just the nature, that's just the one story, but that's how all companies are, right? You don't do things, it's the squeaky wheel gets the oil. So if you're not forced to do innovation for your business, you're not going to. It's like, the path of least resistance,
or it's hard
right?
to.
It's hard to, right? And it's a path of least resistance, and it's only until you have to survive. And so maybe that mentality of I have to do something to survive isn't a bad thing. We don't like that. None of us like to be pushed to have to do something, but sometimes that's when innovation happens. And so it's exciting to see. Maybe one thing that I've noticed too is it gives people confidence that they were able to overcome something. They're able to implement a new technology, a new system that they didn't know they needed, and now they rely on it and they go, "Oh, this is kind of cool. Like this helped our business. We didn't even see how helpful it was going to be, but now that I've done that, now what if I could do this, and if I could add this thing?" And so you get your mindset over the hurdle. And I've seen that with our clients, like things that they've done in the last month is like they've seen the success of it, and they're like, why haven't we been doing this for a lot longer? And now, like, they're starting to bring ideas to the table that are like completely not what you would think they would ever bring. They were like, wow, you're really bringing some progressive ideas here. And I think it gives them confidence. So it's going to be exciting to see. You talked about the question, the earlier question.
What's the answer?
What are we selling?
I've just been sort of polling people. I'm curious what services are you what are the opportunities you're seeing? What do clients want right now?
So many of our clients do different things. I feel like, I don't know if they're asking for this, but it's what we're kind of doing to help our clients. I've seen 2 different types of reaction to all of this. One is can't make a decision, put on the brakes, and I'm confused and I don't know what to do and I'm afraid to take a step. And the other one is overzealous to do something but not thinking through through it very well, and just kind of wanted to throw things really quickly as a quick fix, but not really being very thoughtful in what they're doing, just kind of running a little too fast. So I think for us, we've been able to give strong guidance. We've been able to help pull those who need to kind of break that kind of fear, and then also kind of, in some ways, not slow people down, but really kind of say, okay, that's a great idea, but now let's make sure that it's lasting. So it's not just going to be a quick fix, or it's going to have a detrimental effect to you, and you're going to spend a lot of money and not get results. Because sometimes your clients, they have these ideas that you've been down the road many times, and you're like, that's a good idea, but the way you are looking to execute that, I don't think is going to give you the best result. What if we took that idea and then did this? We've had a better track record, and they go, oh yeah, that's good. They like the idea that somebody's thinking through their anxiety and at the same time their ideas, if they're bringing something to the table, and just bringing good ideas to the table that you feel you can trust and that's going to help your business. So I think for us, it's just doing what we do well, but just there's a little bit more extremes right now.
Yeah, providing thoughtfulness is something that I think I don't think people come in thinking they always need. It's not the top of mind thought for a lot of companies.
They don't know what they need.
Right. We have a lot of companies we have some that do come in and say, hey, that's what we want. They're maybe a little more mature in their thinking, but for most people, that's not what they're thinking, right? They're looking for something that solves a pain that they're going through right now. But right now, and we've been saying this a lot, like there's almost more of a need. I believe there's more of a need for agencies because there's more of a need for specialists and people with experience. And so providing that thoughtfulness that really you can provide better than anyone else, because you see so many businesses, right? As an agency, you see so many businesses solving different problems. Right now, everyone's trying to solve their similar problems, right? They're contextualized inside of their industry, but they're similar problems. And so you as an agency can see many more businesses doing that. And that experience alone allows you to provide some thoughtfulness to anyone making a decision. And I said at the beginning of this that like our sales strategy has been to help people make the right decisions. That's always been the case, but it's like more so now. And that doesn't make it necessarily any easier in any way, but it does put our thoughtfulness at the forefront and our experience in trying to say, hey, here's the best thing for you. So I would say that that's something that we've been providing a lot. I would say what I'm seeing people wanting, I see a disproportionate amount of new endeavors and new businesses. We always get outreach from new businesses, probably like a lot of agencies do. But it's risen, and that makes sense. There's nothing too profound about that, but that's what we've been seeing.
That's good. That's good. Well, guys, any closing thoughts on all this? I mean, this has been a really interesting conversation. I love the idea of thinking about new businesses and thinking outside the box. I do think that there's a shift taking place, and I love that there's a leveling of the playing field when it comes to executing this work. And I'll just say, and my closing thought is what I keep harping on the last few episodes is the opportunity now is for those of us in an agency world who have done e-commerce for years, who have done social media marketing, who have done branding, and who have done digital strategy. It's a huge opportunity because everybody now is saying, we need to go there. And there's going to be a lot of people pop up that say, hey, this is a great opportunity to get into the digital marketing space, into the e-commerce space. And so to be able to separate ourselves and say, we're experts, we've been doing this for the past 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is that you've been doing it. I think that's how agencies win today, is by really, really standing up and say, what sets us apart is we're experts, we've done it, we have case studies, we have a history. Because again, there's going to be a lot of opportunists that stand up, and that's okay. But you got to differentiate yourself.
That's good. That's really good.
Good thought.
Yeah.
I would just say the reason we have this the reason we started this podcast, we have this sort of collaboration over isolation mentality, and I think it's something that doesn't happen often in agencies. And I think I would just say right now, it's more important than ever. So I would encourage people to embrace collaborating and partnering with people who may even seem like your competition, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in that area.
Yeah, I agree with that thought. Sorry, Brad. Maybe the solution to the workspace is partnering with another organization, and you both go in on a lease and say, "Hey, we'll use it 50% of the time. You use it 50% of the time. We'll both save money, and we enter into a collaborative situation that benefits us all."
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the WeWorks of the world, there is a benefit that is hard, is that you connect with other businesses and you partner. There's more partnerships going on into those shared workspaces, and finding other resources than you could imagine. And I think that's something that's harder when you have your own office and stuff. So I think the collaboration thing is so beneficial. So
it's awesome. All right, guys. Until next time, keep pushing on.
Good to see you.
See ya.